So, now, let me just give you an example of one of these regional accrediting organizations. And I've chosen the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, which is based in Philadelphia. And as you can see, it's a voluntary, non-governmental membership association dedicated to quality assurance and improvement through accreditation via peer evaluation. Middle States Accreditation instills public confidence in institutional mission, goals, performance, and resources through its rigorous accreditation standards and their enforcement. So that's a long 2 sentences of their mission, but I think it does nicely bring together everything that a regional accreditation body does and why it does that. These regional associations, they of course, as I said, their main function is to accredit and re-evaluate and re-accredit institutions. So let's say, well, for the universities that pay the fees, that pay their dues, what do they get from that? Well, the goal of these regional accreditation bodies is to help their institutions succeed at accreditation. So they do provide a number of resources. Here's an example of some of them, what they provide to universities. A handbook, best practices, responsibilities, explaining the peer review system and how that should work, suggesting what an institutional liaison officer, meaning someone at a pretty high level at a university who should be responsible for accreditation at the university. Also, something as simple as a policy on travel expenses. For example, when peers need to come and do the review, well, what's the policy? Who pays for what? You know, something as simple as that. But that's what a regional accreditation association should do. And I'll share some of these documents with you afterwards so you can just see an example of how this functions, how it's done. All right, now, that was the regional accreditation. And again, remember that's 6 regions. It's the comprehensive institutional review, and around 3,000 institutions are accredited in total. Now, let's talk about the next type of accreditation, which is programmatic. And programmatic, again, it's something specific, a specific program or department, a curriculum, a specific school, meaning a department or a component of a larger educational institution. For example, we use the term, let's say, the School of Business or the Engineering School. What we're talking about is, of course, that component of a university, not the lower level school. How this is organized is by subject matter or by professional field. A lot of the programmatic accreditation is really for these professional fields of study, such as business, law, engineering, health sciences, veterinary medicine, psychology, and so on. So, just to give you a few examples of some of them, some of the programmatic accreditation agencies. There's the American Culinary Federation Education Foundation. We have a lot of culinary arts programs for hospitality management and for future chefs and restaurant workers. There's the American Occupational Therapy Association, occupational therapy education. The American Veterinary Medical Association. The Council for Interior Design Accreditation. The National Council for Accreditation of Teacher Education. That's obviously a very important one. Accrediting teacher training programs within larger universities. Now, let me go a little bit more in-depth about one of them that I think is useful to show you, because it's the programmatic accreditor that I would say is most active internationally. There are two that are really active. One of them is the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business, known by the acronym AACSB. And the AACSB is one of them that has been very active. In fact, let me read you their mission statement. It is a global nonprofit membership organization of educational institutions, businesses, and other entities devoted to the advancement of management education. Established in 1916, AACSB provides its members with a variety of products and services to assist them with the continual improvement of their business programs and schools. So that's their mission. You see organizations like to have mission statements that are about one or two sentences, but they fill a lot of words into 2 sentences. So, just to give you an example of some of these products and services that they're talking about, well, of course, they do the accreditation for undergraduate and graduate programs in business, management, marketing, accounting. They also put on international conferences, symposia, webinars, and trainings for their members. They put out a number of publications, which are both resources for the institutions, but also for business, to interpret to businesses how they should value education that is done at an AACSB member school, for example, to make that link between education and the workforce. They collect a lot of global data about business education from around the globe. Then also, basically, they do some, let's say, advocacy to support the profile and the value of business education. So that's what AACSB does. They've been working internationally since, I believe it's 1972 is when they first started accrediting non-U.S. institutions. And they're experiencing big growth in accrediting non-U.S. institutions because in the U.S., well, by now, you know, most institutions and most programs are accredited somehow. We don't have a large growth of new programs and new institutions in the U.S. as compared to other countries. Many other countries have been expanding their business education over the past 2 decades, let's say. So a lot of the work of AACSB has now become international. So here's a screenshot of their website, and just so it's hard to see, but the different tabs there are for students, parents, counselors, faculty, recruiters, meaning university admissions recruiters. So it's got a lot of interesting information and resources, as I said, about global business education. And as I said, AACSB is one of the main programmatic accreditation agencies that is very internationally focused and not very American, solely American. Okay. Now I want to take a look at the national accreditation, which, remember, even though it's called national, is really quite specific because it's these career-related institutes, which, yeah, we some of these acronyms on the side, the names of the accreditation agencies: the Accrediting Bureau of Health Education Schools, the Accrediting Council for Independent Colleges and Schools, the National Accrediting Commission of Career Arts and Sciences. As I said, these are mainly vocational technical programs, and for usually not for, many of them are for certificate programs or associate's degrees or possibly bachelor's degrees. A lot of these are also for-profit institutions. So the comprehensive universities would not have this kind of accreditation. It's really something lower than that. And then there are faith-related, 470 faith-related institutions. For example, that first one there is the Association for Biblical Higher Education, Bible colleges. Yes, we have such things. The second one there is the Association of Advanced Rabbinical and Talmudic Studies for training of rabbis in the U.S. The ATS is the Association of Theological Schools. And the last one is the Transnational Association of Christian Colleges. So these are the faith-related associations. You know, the reason why they have this separate accreditation is because due to the subject nature, religion, theology, they are not quite offering the same things that a comprehensive university would offer. So that's why their accreditation needs to be done in a very specific and different way. But they are accredited, so again, getting back to some of the important reasons why we have accreditation. So their credits and also the federal aid or student loans can also be applied to students who go to these universities. Now, who accredits the accreditors? Back to that question. Who oversees all of these agencies? There's the Council for Higher Education Accreditation and the U.S. Department of Education. And what both of these do, basically what they're doing is they're setting the standards, the policies, the procedures for all of those accreditation agencies that we just reviewed. It's also known as recognition. That's a term you'll hear when discussing CHEA and the U.S. Department of Education, recognition of accreditation agencies. Rather than, say, accrediting the accreditors, they call it recognition. So, now who are they? CHEA, again, private, not-for-profit, membership association. It's sustained by membership fees from its members. Its members now are the accreditation agencies. That's who its members are, accreditation agencies. Also, institutions. The higher education institutions are also members of CHEA as well. So, they, again, being a not-for-profit, a non-governmental organization, they are not only serving this function of recognition, accrediting accreditors, but they also are a leader on policy and advocacy and information and training about this whole field of accreditation. So here's a screenshot of their website. Sorry, it's a little bit difficult to see, but, well, it's a very simple website to go to. But if you see some of the tabs down below, they're About CHEA, Government Relations, Databases and Directories, Information about Accreditation, Recognition, Degree Mills and Accreditation Mills, Research Publications and Conference Presentations, the CHEA International Quality Group, Member Services, and the CHEA Almanac Online. So this is, I think, the best source of information on accreditation in America that exists. Also, on the right there, you see Accreditation Toolkit. That has everything any institution needs to undergo accreditation. So CHEA is the umbrella organization that does accreditation and recognition better than anyone else. Now, one important thing is the database. The database is where you would go and look up and see if a program or an institution is accredited. So this database has 8,300 institutions in it, both degree granting and non-degree granting, and almost 24,000 programs are listed in the CHEA database. So it is the most comprehensive source of information about, is a program accredited, is the institution accredited, and by whom, and when did it happen. And this is all available online for anyone to access. It doesn't cost us anything to access it. So if you wanted to check the accreditation status, you would just, of any university, you would just look in the database. This is the database of institutions accredited by recognized U.S. accrediting organizations. So let's say I was looking for Quinnipiac University in New Haven, Connecticut. I would just put in the search, the state of Connecticut, and put in the name Quinnipiac University. It would show me the result that it is in there. Then you would click on that and go to the institutional profile and find out about its accreditation. So it's very simple to do, to use. Also, in the database, they have the directory of CHEA recognized organizations. And what that is the accreditation agencies. So not only can you look up individual institutions' accreditation status, you can look up all of the accreditation agencies and see what's in there. It's hard to read where you are, but they are also broken down by the regional, the programmatic, and the national accreditation agencies. So you can find that there. Now, another interesting thing that CHEA does is, it, as I said, as an advocate and resource for the whole topic of accreditation, it also established what they call an international quality group. And basically, it's a forum, let's call it that, for colleges and universities, for accreditation and quality assurance bodies, higher education associations, governments, also private sectors such as the business world or private foundations, etc., that basically take a look at international issues in accreditation. So in some sense, it's sort of like I wouldn't call it an international council of accreditation agencies, but trying to gather governments, institutions, accreditation bodies together to have a common forum for information sharing. Again, the fact that CHEA is, although primarily an American organization accrediting accreditation agencies, in the U.S., they are also looking at the topic internationally as well. The second recognition body is the U.S. Department of Education. And the U.S. Department of Education doesn't directly accredit the universities. The accreditation agencies do that. They directly accredit. The U.S. Department of Education does not do it. But what it does is it basically, the Department of Education is required by law to publish a list of nationally recognized accreditation agencies that basically show the quality assurance in education. And it basically, also they do work on secondary level authorization or accreditation. But again, where this really matters for our purposes is determining if a student can access federal financial aid and loans. That's the main point of it for those of us who operate internationally. Because the U.S. Department of Education, even though it is publishing a list of accreditation agencies, it specifically states that its jurisdiction is the United States, and it has no jurisdiction as a government agency outside of the borders of the United States, so it can't operate internationally. So it says it has, by law, it can only have a domestic purpose. Now, I'll show you how that's not exactly true. But, again, they have a database, also which you can look up institutional accreditation as well. I use the example of Quinnipiac University in Connecticut. And, again, you would just search by state, institution name, and you'll see the listing. You can look within the university's profile to see not only its institutional, its comprehensive level accreditation, which would be by the New England States Council on Higher Education. Also, you can look at the university's programmatic accreditation. So Quinnipiac, in addition to having the New England States accreditation as a regional accreditation, has programmatic accreditation from the Accreditation Commission for Education and Nursing for its master's and baccalaureate programs in nursing. It has accreditation from the American Bar Association for its law school. It has accreditation from the American Occupational Therapy Association, Accreditation Council for Occupational Therapy Education in its occupational therapy program, and so on and so on and so on. So the U.S. Department of Education accreditation database is also quite useful if you need to know all of this. Okay, so since it seems like both CHEA and the U.S. Department of Education do some of the same things, basically, in terms of having databases, having listings, accrediting the accreditors. What are the differences? Well, conceptually how they see it is that basically, they're doing similar but not totally identical work. CHEA, being a private, not-for-profit organization, their main focus, their main reason for doing this is to ensure academic quality of institutions. They're concerned about the core capacity of American institutions to provide quality education. Whereas the Department of Education is mainly concerned with using, or the appropriate use, of federal funds that are involved in U.S. higher education. And again, getting back to what I said at the beginning, this is a great example of our decentralized nature of American higher education and the important role of the private sector, as well as the government, in regulating and governing higher education in the U.S. CHEA and the U.S. Department of Education, as I said, they accredit accrediting agencies. However, each of them does not accredit each and every agency. So they do use their own discretion to decide which accrediting agencies they are going to recognize and endorse. For example, the regional agencies, they both recognize them. The faith-related, they both recognize them. The career-related, CHEA recognizes only 2 of the accreditation agencies, but the U.S. Department of Education recognizes 5. Again, this also has to do with workforce development and the role of the government in that. And the programmatic agencies, it's a mix of how many. The total is 80, by the way. That's the total number of accrediting agencies recognized by both. So we're talking about 80 different bodies, 80 different accrediting bodies here.